Well, we're off to Montreal now on HTV for the 1998 Canadian Grand Prix.
Montreal 97, bitter frustration for David Coulthard, denied a certain victory by a cruel late mechanical failure. Montreal 98, Coulthard on a high and on pole, eyeing 10 World Championship points. Welcome to ITV's coverage of the Canadian Grand Prix. It's damp and chilly, but there's still a six-figure crowd at the Gilles Villeneuve circuit. Good afternoon to you all. We're 5 hours behind you here. The race due off in, just under 40 minutes' time. Temperature in the low 50s. That is cold for this time of year. Absolutely crucial day, though, for David Coulthard in his quest for the World Championship. He starts the race a sizable 17 points behind Mika Häkkinen, but in great shape to close that gap after a magnificent qualifying surge.
David Coulthard started the qualifying session as he meant to go on, pushing hard and claiming provisional pole on his first flying lap. But McLaren didn't have it all their own way.
He's going to move ahead of Coulthard, no doubt about that, and he does so by 0.2 of a second.
A new tyre from Goodyear has helped Michael Schumacher to close the gap. Coulthard wasn't giving up. He snatched the pole back with a 1 minute 18.344 lap. And the focus stayed on the McLaren garage as Mika Häkkinen took a turn at the helm. Giancarlo Fisichella maintained his Monaco pace, putting on a great show to qualify fourth. But Alexander Wurz had little to celebrate. On the anniversary of his Grand Prix debut, he was 11th in the second Benetton. Mixed fortunes for Jordan too. Damon finished 10th after failing to get to grips with the new Goodyears, as well as Ralf Schumacher, who qualified a very creditable 5th. The Williams pair were much closer together, just 0.02 of a second split Villeneuve from Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 7th. But the pole position was only decided in the final minute of the qualifying session.
David Coulthard moves up into pole position, and Mika Häkkinen is not going to be able to beat that.
The Scots back on top in qualifying, but will he stay ahead of Häkkinen in the race?
I waited until he'd done his last run, and I just told myself as I left the pit lane that I deserved to be on pole, and just focused on that pole lap, and thankfully very close, but it worked for me.
So there always will be the days when somebody else will be in pole position. Today it was David. Is it a problem? I said yes, but that's life.
There's a lot came from the tire and as well from the new engine which Honda brought here, which seemed to support, especially here, because it is quite a high-speedy circuit. It helps us.
I feel I can catch them, and that's why, you know, yesterday we were 16th, and this morning we were 10th or something, not even, and so we kept making progress, and hopefully we'll have a strong race.
We made a little bit of an improvement on the car side, but most is coming from the tire.
What are you expecting from tomorrow's race?
I would like to win, but there's two guys in front of me. I have to discuss with them.
I'm very happy. You know, the feeling that I got when they told me I had pole, it's just fantastic. Unfortunately, there's no points for it, and it doesn't mean anything when I go to start tomorrow. It just gives me a clear track and hopefully gives me an opportunity to go for 10 points.
So the grid. McLaren Mercedes fill the front row for the 6th time this season. Michael Schumacher and Fisichella, Ferrari and Benetton make up row 2. Ralf Schumacher and world champion Jacques Villeneuve, row 3. Frenssen's Williams and Eddie Irvine's Ferrari. John Alesi in the Sauber 9th. Damon Hill joins him on the 5th row. Row 6, Wurz and Britain's Johnny Herbert. Row 7, Barrichello, followed by the Prost of Trulli and Panis, and Takagi 16th. Row 9, Salo's Arrows and Nakano in the Minardi. Pedro Diniz and Jan Magnussen on row 10, and at the back, Esteban Tuero and Ricardo Rosset. And joining me here in the studio, as always, is Tony Jardine. Hi, Tony, and delighted to welcome our special guest this afternoon. It's Ken Tyrrell. Ken, really pleased you're here. 30 years you've had in this sport, but not in charge of a team this season. You're watching your first Grand Prix of the season. Have you been missing it?
Yeah, I've missed it. Yeah. I feel like a tourist here. I am a tourist here.
You've been following the sport with us via ITV's coverage, haven't you? What have you made of the season so far?
Well, I know people are saying it's boring if McLarens keep on winning, but I don't find it boring. I think because you're sitting at home, we don't know what the setup is. You don't know how many pit stops they're going to make, and you don't know what sort of decisions are being made. So you're out of it. You're completely out of it. You know, I mean, it's interesting to watch the race. It's especially once the pit stops start.
Yeah, there are millions of people turning on in Britain now, hoping for a David Coulthard victory here. What are your thoughts about the upcoming Canadian Grand Prix?
Well, it's obviously going to be very close, and Schumacher's not going to give this one up that easily. And certainly the Goodyear tyre is much improved here. So I think it will be a very close race. But I'd like to see them get away in the order that they're on the grid in. I'd like to see David come out of the first corner with Hakkinen behind him and Schumacher behind, because then I think we'll see a motor race.
OK, thanks for the moment, Ken. Anyway, it's the start, really, of a very big few days for Scottish sport. Craig Brown's team take on the world champions Brazil to start the World Cup in Paris on Wednesday. And here, the pressure really is on David Coulthard as he looks to get the week off to a flying start.
Pressure is when you start to lose control, and I can't say that I'm in control at the moment because clearly he's the one who's 17 points with the advantage, but there's 100 points to play for. We've only had 6 Grand Prix, there's a long way to go, and there's no point getting panicky, and I've got to just do my job, which is to try and be quicker and to win the Grand Prix. Worrying is a negative emotion that isn't going to help me. You know, I need to be positive, I need to look at each circuit and to try and do the best job I possibly can. At the point at which he scored more points than I can achieve to win the championship over the crunch time, and not before. And with 10 races to go, there's a lot that can happen. Therefore, I'm just going to try and use my knowledge of this track and the fact that it's tended to suit my driving style more than Mika's over the last couple of years to give me an advantage on him this weekend rather than wait like what we saw in Monaco.
So he's got the advantage, Tony, of being on pole. How important was that psychological blow?
Very important for him indeed. But I think, like in Monte Carlo, he went back to his flat and he watched a load of videos of the start and kept studying what he wanted to do. So I hope he brought his videos of last year's race here so he can make a good start, because as Ken said, that's critical for him. If he can stay ahead of Mika, he's got a good chance. Yeah.
What do you make of the two of them, Hakkinen and Coulthard, the situation there? Are they racing each other enough for a start?
Oh, I think so, yes. I think all that business of Melbourne is behind them now, and Hakkinen is not going to be satisfied if he's laying second. I think the race will, the important part of the race will be the last third, when the pit stops are all over. And if they're staying in the same order, then we should see some motor racing.
Yeah, but how about the battle between them? Because Hakkinen certainly has had the advantage in recent races, hasn't he? How hard is it for a driver to pull that round to change that, Ken?
I personally think that Hakkinen is more likely to win the World Championship than David is.
Why do you think that?
I think we've already seen that in the races we've had just this year when they're in equal cars, and 2 very well prepared cars, 2 beautifully prepared cars. And we've seen that Hakkinen's come out best, and I think that's likely to be the scene at the end of the season.
OK, so Ken Tyrrell then going for Mika Hakkinen to win the World Championship. The reigning world champion is Jacques Villeneuve, and Villeneuve really is a name plastered all over the Canadian media here. The circuit is actually named after his late father, Gilles. More on that now from Murray Walker.
Canada's Gilles Villeneuve was one of the most spectacular and charismatic drivers ever to race in Formula One. He made his name in snowmobiling before being snapped up by Ferrari, but they never gave him a car worthy of his talents. How he tried, though. He absolutely hurled his cars round the track, always attacking, never giving up. Quiet and modest, out of the car, he was a firebrand in it. Sadly, he was killed in tragic circumstances in 1982 but he'll never be forgotten. And here in Montreal, we've got our own Derek Warwick, who raced against the great Canadian. What do you remember about him, Derek?
Jill was a legend. You know, he was a legend then, he still is today. He had the kind of commitment that we drivers and spectators loved and adored.
You know, they don't make him like Gilles now. He never looked like a racing driver because he was such a little chap, slight of stature. But he got himself into the most incredibly dramatic situations. Look at this one, 1979 Dutch Grand Prix. He's practically torn the wheel off the side of the car.
But you know, Murray, this is why he had this godlike following, because every time he got into a situation like this, it was still total commitment. He drove this car back. Nowadays, the drivers would be fined thousands of dollars and probably banned for 3 races. But Gilles was always able to get away with it because they expected him to do it. And here he is coming into the pits with half the gearbox missing, still expecting him to just change the tyre and go back out onto the track again.
Well, needless to say, Gilles didn't win that Grand Prix, but in his spectacular career, he did win 6 of them, and in 1979 nearly became world champion, one of motor racing's greats. Well, the great Gilles won his first Grand Prix right here in 1978. His son Jacques never done that. Not many people think he will do today, but Canada certainly hopes so.
Absolutely right, Murray. Jacques Villeneuve has a massive home support today. Derek Warwick will be alongside Murray because Martin Brundle's been driving at Le Mans this weekend. Martin, the early leader, but then hit the wall quite severely in his Toyota early this morning. He's okay, and he'll be back in 3 weeks' time. Don't worry about the noise behind me, by the way. The race itself, the Canadian Grand Prix, underway in just under half an hour's time. Well, back in '96, Damon Hill won here in his World Championship year. It's a bit different this time. He comes to Canada with his Jordan team still searching for their first point of the season. Hill and Ralph Schumacher a bit more competitive in qualifying, but they know they've got to produce where it matters in the race itself. Here's Louisa.
A routine pit stop practice at the Canadian Grand Prix, but it's going to take more than just clever teamwork to lift Jordan out of its current crisis. Nowhere were the problems more evident than in Monaco 2 weeks ago. Damon Hill qualified 15th, Ralph Schumacher 16th, and both cars were totally outclassed in the race. The team have yet to score a single point this season.
The race performance just doesn't seem to have been as good as what we'd ever hoped for. Monaco exacerbated that really in terms of that it just was appalling and it wasn't comfortable for any member of the team to see the cars and the drivers going at the speed that they were going at. But in very many cases, often you need a little bit of a real shock like that to draw full attention to what is required to happen.
One face missing this weekend is technical director Gary Anderson. He's troubleshooting back at base, and Eddie's rumoured to be looking for new faces to add to his technical team.
It's important to find key people who can understand the Jordan mentality and the feeling inside Jordan, who will work together with the existing people there to bring added value. Now, if there are those people, and I'm talking to a number of different people, if those people can properly adjust and adapt to that, of course we'll take them on.
But despite the problems, Jordan's title sponsor, Benson & Hedges, remain 100% loyal.
I have total confidence in Eddie. We have very much a partnership. We work very closely together. And I know that he knows that that's the job he's got to get on and complete. He's won in every single formula he's been in. I don't believe that this will be any exception.
And despite the lack of results in another character-building season for Damon Hill, the Briton remains 100% committed.
I don't wish to spend the rest of my career jumping from team to team in the hope that I might get lucky. I want to work with the team, and I want to contribute to the team and get to the front that way.
Damon's beard's come off for today's race. Will he, though, be off from Jordan, do you think?
No, I don't think so at all, Jim, because he's gone on the record and said, I'm going to finish what I've started. I don't want to jump ship. And he's really working very hard. The testing last week, he was still there 7, 8 o'clock at night. He's really into it. And there's one thing Damon Hill is a great tester.
Ken, what are your thoughts about what's happened to Damon since he became a world champion in the last couple of seasons?
Well, it was a strange decision for him to go to Arrows last year. With the engine that we knew they had was not going to be competitive. And I think his move to Jordan was a good move. Everyone thinks he should have taken the McLaren offer, of course. Now,
Do you think he might be thinking about that now himself?
Whether or not Jordan can win a Grand Prix this year or finish up in the points is going to depend so much on the performance of Goodyear. Right. Goodyear's been behind so far. They're much closer here. Let's hope from the races that go on from here that they will catch up and we'll see some really competitive races between the Goodyear shod cars and the Bridgestone shod cars.
Just briefly, do you think Damon himself might be having second thoughts deep down?
Well, I suppose he must do, mustn't he? I mean, fancy being able to drive a McLaren in 1998. Whoa.
Absolutely right. And in terms of just wrenching a team round like Eddie Jordan is trying to do, you know all about that. How tough is it to do that?
I don't think there's a great deal of wrenching to do. I think the tyre problem is a major problem at the moment. And obviously Gary is working on improving the car.
Gary Anderson.
Yeah, I think that... I think that get the tyre problem sorted out. I think you'll see the Jordan team up there.
Good. Okay, Ken, thank you very much indeed. Well, now let's take a closer look at the Gilles Villeneuve circuit. They've been going at terrifyingly quick speeds, over 200 miles an hour down the straight. The hairpins, though, are very hard indeed on the brakes. Okay, here's Derek Warwick taking you round a flying lap with a man who won his only Grand Prix here.
So here we are, an exciting lap with Jean Alesi here at Montreal. Over the start-finish line in 6th gear, down into 2nd gear, little bit of brake lock-up, blip of the throttle into the right-hander here, 2nd gear. Very important to get your exit right. You can see Jean Alesi's hands working really hard there. Up to 5th gear, 120 miles an hour. Back down to 3rd, over the curb right, over the curb left. Very difficult corner, right-hander, flat, 140 miles an hour, 6th gear. Braking down to 2nd gear, again over the curbs. He's working like crazy to get this car around this circuit. There he is, up to 6th gear now. He's now looking at his instruments, making sure that everything's okay. Very bumpy under braking point here, so we've got to be very careful. Turning in right-hander, turning in left, let the car drift out to the wall, back up to 6th gear. Here we're doing speeds of 175 miles an hour, getting the car ready for braking. Down into 1st gear, where this is the tightest corner on the circuit. A little bit of wheel spin on the exit. Very important to get the exit right because you've got a long drag to the last corner. Almost 200 miles an hour. You can see Jean Alesi's hands at the top of the steering wheel there. He's the only driver that drives this way. Under the Casino Bridge, down into 3rd gear, turning right, left, mind those rubber markers, out to the wall, back up through 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th gear, over the start-finish line. A great lap.
Derek Warwick, he very nearly won here himself in 1989 in the wet in the Arrows. Okay, Ken, I know you want to get back to the grandstand to watch the race. Lots of people have joined us since you made your prediction at the start of the show. Just to remind us on how you think the race is going to go.
I think a McLaren will win, but look out for Schumacher. I think Schumacher will be very good here. Goodyear tyres looking good, and I think that he will be looking to win this race.
Okay, Ken, a lot of people missing you down the pit lane, I know that, but you enjoy the race.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, of course, wherever we go on the Formula One World Tour, we believe in giving you a flavour of the place we visit. So, here's our postcard from Montreal.
Lots of bars, restaurants, and quite a buzz atmosphere.
It's a great setting, it's great restaurants. People here are great.
It seems like a very fun place, and the people are very nice, very polite.
It seems to be a very excitable town when the Grand Prix comes back.
The plans for learning nightlife in city will be on Sunday, hopefully after a good race result. Otherwise, I'm a serious guy and always go to bed at 10 o'clock.
Well, the circuit packed with Villeneuve fans. Blondie coming back to his roots, as it were, here. And after the break, the last question in our glorious 12th competition. Your chance to win a VIP trip for two to the British Grand Prix in the afternoon of July the 12th and the World Cup final in the evening. Welcome back to Montreal. Handsome couple down there. Louise Goodman, ready to talk, perfectly colour coordinated as well, to Johnny Herbert. Off you go, Lou.
Standing by with jovial Johnny. Johnny, tell me about your weekend so far, though. You've not been so jovial yesterday, were you?
Well, again, I had another sort of problematic sort of morning session, which ruined the qualifying, which is annoying because I've had so many this year, and they just keep happening. We've got to stop them happening because it will make the qualifying much easier for me.
Tell me about this first corner. What's it like there? Is it a tricky one?
It's okay. It's a normal left-hand turn, so it's not too bad. The only problem is it does bottleneck down very slightly. But you can try and go around the outside, but then people try and cut you up as you come out of it obviously for the hairpin. So it can be quite a tricky corner.
Now, the other thing everyone's been talking about this weekend is brakes. Just how marginal are they? They're going to be giving you problems by the end of the race?
Well, we seem to be okay. We had some brakes yesterday and we changed for this morning, and we actually have a much better wear rate, so I think we're actually quite fine. But that was this morning, and the race is always different.
Well, good luck for the race. By the way, the second corner goes to the right.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice one. He's due a good race here, is Johnny Herbert. Some miserable time so far this season. Okay, our next Grand Prix is at Manicourt in 3 weeks' time. By then, France 98 will be in full swing.
What a beautiful goal from Salah! Johan Cruyff, the master! Oh, what a goal from David Neary!
ITV will be the place to watch the World Cup.
Ronaldo! Yes! Zidane, a superbly taken goal. And Shearer!
ITV, a lot of sexy football.
It all starts on Tuesday night at 10:40 with Fantasy World Cup, followed by our preview show at 11:10. That takes us nicely to the last question in our glorious 12th competition. A helicopter ride into Silverstone kicks off one of the finest prizes in sport. First up, 2 VIP tickets, including a champagne reception at the British Grand Prix. Then, a swift helicopter ride to a nearby airport and a waiting private jet to take you and your lucky companion to the Stade de France and the World Cup final in Paris. A reminder of the first 3 questions. Who missed the decisive penalty kick in the '94 final? Was it A, Paolo Maldini, B, Roberto Baggio, or C, Nicola Berti? The second question, who was the only player to have scored in every match of the final stages of the World Cup? A, Jeff Hurst, B, Gerd Müller, or C, Jairzinho? In question 3, we asked how many times has Damon Hill won the British Grand Prix? Is it A, 1, B, 2, or C, 3? Today's fourth and final question, who won the last RAC British Grand Prix? Was it A, Mika Häkkinen, B, Michael Schumacher, or C, Jacques Villeneuve? Who won the British Grand Prix last year? A, Mika Häkkinen, B, Michael Schumacher, or C, Jacques Villeneuve? And here is the crucial number: 0891 333 666. 0891 333 666. The lines close midnight Wednesday, June the 24th. The calls will cost you 50p a minute. Full details on Teletext, page 127 on ITV, and the very best of luck to you all. What a magnificent day that is going to be. More details available on the ITV website. Okay then, Damon Hill starts 10th in the Canadian Grand Prix, and he talks now to James Allen.
Well, Jim, I'm down here with Damon Hill. It's been a bit more competitive weekend for Jordan this weekend, hasn't it, Damon?
Well, it's certainly better than Monaco was, so we're all a bit uplifted by that.
What kind of race are we going to see this afternoon? This weather's really unpredictable, very strange, isn't it?
Very unusual for Canada here. It's usually quite hot at this time of year, but we've had a very cold weekend all weekend. It rained this morning, and it looked like it could do anything right now.
You seem a bit subdued, Damon. Has shaving the beard off made you a bit serious?
I thought the beard was supposed to make me look more serious.
Make you look old. Anyway, good luck for the race.
All right, thanks a lot.
He's probably a bit chilly down there because it really is a cold one. 12 degrees. Day for the anoraks. Wrap up warm, but a massive crowd. All of them, or the vast majority, trying to cheer Jacques Villeneuve on. Chilly winds coming off the St. Lawrence. A fair bit of overnight rain. Handling the cars very tricky in this morning's warm-up. Here's James once again.
On a drying track this morning, Heinz-Harald Frentzen came out on top for Williams, but the times among the top runners were encouragingly close, although poor old Eddie Irvine came a bit of a cropper in the gravel traps. And Jacques Villeneuve took an impromptu steam bath when a radiator pipe burst. Now, the weather in Montreal this weekend has been extremely unpredictable. As you can see, the teams are getting the intermediate and wet tyres ready. But if the race is dry, then the decision whether to go for one stop or two stops is absolutely critical. Now, the extra weight of a one-stop fuel load will help to get some heat into the tyres, but the brakes will take a serious hammering. So the safer route is to go for two stops, and I expect to see Ferrari and McLaren do that. But watch out for Benetton, who may try a crafty one-stop strategy to gain track position.
All will be revealed. The Canadian Grand Prix due off in 10 minutes' time. I don't know, Tony, I can't help coming here and not thinking back and remembering last year and remembering that horrible accident for Olivier Panis, who made a remarkably quick recovery, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, but we also have to remember this is pretty much a street circuit. The Armco barrier is right at the edge, and poor Panis was very unfortunate. He had a knock earlier in the race which had tweaked the suspension. There it broke and off he went, but he speared into the Armco barrier there, and the Armco at the front of the monocoque split open and broke both his legs, which of course was very traumatic at the time, traumatic for him, for the rest of the drivers, etc. And luckily he made this miraculous recovery in France. You know, he had all this rehabilitation, he had this physiotherapy from France's best, and he says now that his legs, he reckons, are much stronger than ever they were before. But as I say, you know, here he is driving again, and going past that same point, he perhaps gave it a momentary thought, but after that, racing driver just gets on it, and he's been asked about it, he's just shrugged his shoulders. It should be remembered here, Derek Warwick himself has gone off backwards here. There's been some big crashes here. They have to, you know, watch the barriers right at the edge, and this circuit bites.
James mentioning that Benetton might one-stop Giancarlo Fisichella, we saw there up on the podium in Monaco, and a very, very confident driver. And there we are, we're looking at Panis. I mean, they're men of steel, these. I'm just wondering what's flickering around in the back of his head before he starts this race, Tony.
He's just thinking about his tactics. He's determined to succeed. They're having a very rough time this year. They've got this new rear suspension on the car, and they're trying to make the car work much better than it has before. Jarno Trulli is just ahead of Panis on the grid as well, so that's probably upset Panis a little bit. But it was he, Trulli, who first spotted that there was a problem with the rear end of the Prost, and it's reputed that John Barnard has given them a bit of a helping hand through his design company to redesign that rear suspension. Let's hope it helps today. And there's Michael Schumacher, the man who's third on the grid. Yeah, he's looking for rain. There is a 40% chance of precipitation at this time, and we've got all the reports coming in. He's praying for it, but the Goodyear runners are in quite good shape.
And there's Craig Pollock, the man who replaced Ken Tyrrell, and Dave Richards of Benetton, chatting about the Canadian Grand Prix. It's off in 8 minutes' time.